Okay, welcome to our second video on rocks and minerals. And I thought I'd just clarify some of the basic terms or basic properties of rocks so that when I mention that this one has these kinds of properties and this one has these kinds of properties, hopefully you have some sort of basic understanding first and I have to repeat explaining the same property again and again. So first thing I want to lay out is minerals and rocks. What's the difference? Well, rocks or stones, depending on what country you're from, is the main thing that you would say. A big chunk of something that would be considered to be a rock. What's a mineral though? Well, minerals, if you can imagine, are the building blocks of rocks. So when you see the rock and there's all different speckles of different kinds of things in it, those speckles you would consider to be the minerals that the rock is made out of. Usually it's not just one homogeneous, one continuous, one singular type of material. Often it's a collection that's all existing together in this rock piece. So we would consider those component pieces to be the mineral. Hope that clarifies it. Other things you can think about is the properties. So hardness is one of the obvious properties of rocks. So hardness can be measured in a number of different ways. I'm aware of two, one of them being the Mohs hardness scale, everything going from some of the soft materials and all the way up to diamond being the hardest material. And if you get any two materials and you scratch them against each other, which one gets scratched? Okay, if that one gets scratched by the other object, then this one here must be lower on the hardness scale than the one you scratched it with. And you can sort of sort out like a ranking order. That's the Mohs hardness scale. Another scale that has been used for hardness for different things, like steel, for example, is the Rockwell scale. So that's another way of measuring it, 60 Rockwell and stuff like that. So you can fine-tune different kinds of steels for different purposes using that scale. Next thing is obviously we can classify rocks according to their color, and their color is going to reflect the minerals that they have inside them. Another thing that we talk about is streak color. Now, I'm not going to go into much about streak colors now. I do have a video that I recorded at a museum which shows the streak color. It's really fascinating. It's one of the great ways of telling rocks apart. Another thing is we can say that some materials have a high luster. Luster is a very fancy name for saying shiny. So some metals are very shiny, some rocks are very shiny, some rocks are very non-shiny. Another thing that we look at for rocks and their properties is crystals. Now, a crystal, we have to dive into the realm of chemistry here. A crystal, in chemistry terms, is when all the atoms are lined up in a nice repeating arrangement. Okay, that's not specific to gemstones. It could be things like metals as well. As long as these atoms are all laying next to each other in a nice regular repeating pattern, that group will be considered to be a crystal. Rocks form crystals. Sometimes it's one giant crystal, or it can be lots of little tiny crystals that are all interlocked together, depending on the way the rock was formed. And I'm going to get into that in the next video. So if a material has a nice repeating pattern, we call it a crystalline structure. If it doesn't, if it's all random, then we call it an amorphous crystal structure. Another thing we can talk about for properties is porosity, or pores or holes. Sometimes you think, like pumice stone that you find on the beach. It's got lots of holes in it. That's porous. So some rocks have that, some rocks don't. Another thing we definitely notice the difference with rocks is some of them are really heavy for their size. We call that density. And other ones that don't have a lot of heft to them according to their size. That's low density. So with those sort of basic properties over and done with, let's get into our first theory on rocks, and it'll be on igneous rocks.